everyone. I will call the meeting to order and welcome to meeting number 60 of the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage. I would like to point out that this meeting is being held on the traditional and unceded lands of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
The interpretation, both English and French, are coming in at equal levels.
Could we pause, suspend a minute while everybody looks at that, please? Format pursuant to the House Order of Thursday, June the 23rd, 2022, and members attending in person, you know what to do, you know how to get into your interpretation with the little globe at the bottom of your screen, and of course, you know to mute when you're not speaking. I think muting when you're not speaking is really important, mainly because it stops this kind of feedback from happening. So usual, please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking, and interpretation for those of you on the floor, you know how to find it. All comments should be addressed through the chair. And in accordance with our routine motion, I'm informing the committee that all witnesses, that is, the witnesses on the floor from Heritage Canada officials, are present at the committee room, and therefore no connection tests are needed. Now, I want to welcome the witnesses who are here to answer any technical questions. Of course, Mr. Ripley from Associate Deputy Minister, Cultural Affairs, Mr. Sabag, Director General, Broadcasting Copyright, Joël Paré, Acting Director, Marketplace and Legislative Policy, and Frederick Mattern, Manager, Marketplace and Legislative Policy. So we shall begin. And the last time, if I recall, Mr. Champoux had withdrawn his BQ9, and we're now going to the question which I will ask now. Shall clause
Présidente, c'était BQ5.
It was BQ5.
So shall clause 31 carry?
As amended, Madam Chair?
Yes, sorry, as amended. Is there anyone in the room opposing? So then...
There is a request for on division.
All right, on division. Shall clause 32 carry? On division. Now we have a new clause, which is 32.1. And under that, we have NDP 22. Peter Julian.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And thanks to to folks for moving along in terms of clauses. That's very helpful, so we can spend more time on the amendments and less time on voting on each of the clauses. That's helpful. For NDP 22, this was suggested by Friends, for which is an organization, national organization that provides a lot of support for CBC and public broadcasting. This is an issue of ensuring transparency, and so ensuring that there is more information available, which will help to improve the caliber of the agreements that are signed, and the ability, of course, of particularly smaller news organizations or organizations, as we saw in the Australian model, country press that regroup together dozens of small newspapers across Australia. Having that information is a very important aspect of ensuring that it's a level playing field for the negotiations with big tech. So what this amendment would seek to do is ensuring that the copy of the agreement is filed within 30 days after the date on which it enters into an agreement, or after the day in which an arbitration panel makes a decision, and that the Commission would publish on its website that agreement as well. So it ensures more transparency and ensures the ability of particularly the small players to know what is the extent of agreements that are being signed, so that they can more effectively negotiate as well. So with that note, I move Amendment NDP 22.
Is there any discussion? I see none in the link, but is there one on the floor?
Mrs.
Yes,
Thomas.
clerk.
Mrs. Thomas has her.
Yes. Mrs. Thomas?
Thank you. I have a question for the mover, and that is, I'm wondering, for those agreements that have already been entered into, would they be expected to then make their arrangements known if those arrangements have already been made prior to this legislation coming into place? And if so, how would they meet that 30-day criteria?
That is a very good question. I'll actually refer to Mr. Ripley on that, on his interpretation of that clause. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for the question, MP Thomas. So my reading of the proposed amendment would be that it would only apply likely to agreements moving forward, because the proposed amendment is circumscribed by eligible news businesses. So right now, any agreements that are in place, there's been no designation of any eligible news businesses. So my read is, as drafted, it would only apply on a carry forward basis.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question? Sorry, please. Can you please mute your mic on the floor? Thank you. So does that answer your question, Mrs. Thomas?
Thank you. My only statement would just be that I see a privacy issue here, and normally commercial agreements wouldn't be published. We'll be voting against.
All right. Thank you. So anyone wishes to speak?
Mr. Biddle has his hand up. Mr. Biddle has his hand up, Dr. Frey.
Chris Biddle.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Just very quickly, I think we've spoke to this last meeting in terms of amendments brought by Mr. Julian, which, though are well-intentioned, it goes against what we think one of the main purposes of the bill is to regulate foreign tech giants and not news organizations. And agree with Mrs. Thomas in terms of this is private information between two private organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. Any further discussion, clerk? No? Thank you. So then my question shall be, shall NDP 22 carry?
There are a few no's and one request for on division.
All right, then maybe we should call the vote quickly. Thank you.
On NDP 22, Mr. Biddle.
Madam Chair, I think it's pretty clear that I don't have a majority on this, so I would accept defeated on division.
All right, so defeated then on division. All right, that's great. And now we go to clause 33 and NDP 23. Peter.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This is an amendment that was suggested by APTN and Nadan Sununavut. This is part of the series of amendments that we have adopted so far that include that within C18 a very strong proponent and support for Indigenous people, Indigenous journalists, and what this amendment would purport to do is ensure that the roster of those that are qualified arbitrators would also include Indigenous persons. So I move NDP 23.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion on NDP 23? Any hands up in the room? None on the chat. So fine. So shall we carry clause NDP 23 on division? Yes. No.
No.
So it's carried on.
No, Dr. Fry.
Carried on division. Thank you.
Just about
All
the
right
amendment?
now. That's the amendment 23.
I'm hearing that it's okay for it to be carried on division, Dr. Fry.
Yes, that's what I suggest. Good, great. Now, so shall clause 33 carry? Clause,
No.
Any objections? Clause 33 is carried. Shall clause 34 carry?
Dr. Fry, there were objections on clause 33.
All right. Okay. So shall clause 33 carry on division?
Yes, on division is okay, Dr. Fry.
Carried. All right. Shall clause 34 carry? On division. Yes, carried on division. Okay. Shall clause 35 carry? Room. Clause 35 shall carry on division. Shall clause 36. We're going to clause 36 now. NDP 24.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. What this is seeking to do is making sure, again, in terms of a level playing field, that panels, including arbitrators, would have access to information so that they can better determine what is in the best interests of the negotiations. So this issue of transparency is something that we've seen reflected and improved in other parts of the bill. For this particular part of the bill, and this suggestion comes from Unifor, Canada's largest private sector union that represents many journalists across the country. What this would do is provide that information to arbitrators so that the panel can actually take that into consideration when there is a decision, and in that way they can make sure that there is a balanced and informed decision-making process. So the bargaining process would be more transparent as a result, and I believe Mr. Biddle may have a sub-amendment, but I move NDP 24.
You move NDP 24. Mr. Biddle, where are you?
Ms. Gladou's hand's actually up, Dr. Fry.
Okay, Ms. Gladou.
Yes, I just wanted to raise a concern about this amendment because the Commission would be bound by certain confidentiality constraints that the panel may not be bound by. So I would be concerned about releasing confidential information to the panel. So I will oppose this motion.
Thank you, Ms. Gladou. Mr. Biddle, you have an amendment, a sub-amendment?
Not necessarily. I'd like to throw it over to Mr. Ripley, if I can, to just ask him what are the risks associated with Mr. Julian's amendment, if any.
Thank you. So as MP Gladue noted, right now at Section 55, there are provisions in place to ensure the protection of confidential information in the possession of the regulator, the CRTC. If this amendment were to pass as is, there is no protection for that confidential information once it is put in the hands of the arbitration panel. One option would be to consider an amendment at Section 55 to that effect. Having said that, I would just acknowledge right now the intention is that the arbitration panel's decision is public. If you provide them with confidential information and they use it in their decision-making process, there are issues then that arise around transparency and the publication of those decisions.
Thank you. So now I'm going to call a question. Shall NDP...
Dr. Fry?
Any further discussion
Yes,
in the room?
Mr. Biddle would like, I think, to ask a follow-up.
Yes, Mr. Biddle. Oh, Mr. Julian or Mr. Biddle?
Mr. Biddle, I think.
Thank you so much. I will move that sub-amendment. My apologies, just getting everything in order. So after that in the commission's opinion, so after that, is necessary for a balanced and informed decision-making process, comma, on the condition that the Commission ensures that the arbitration panel or each individual arbitrator that presides over the final offer arbitration, comma, do not further disclose any such confidential information and under any further terms that the Commission considers necessary. So I'll read it again. After, in the Commission's opinion, is necessary for a balanced and informed decision-making process on the condition that the Commission ensures that the arbitration panel or each individual arbitrator that presides over the final offer arbitration do not further disclose any such confidential information and under any further terms that the Commission considers necessary.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Biddle. Any discussion on the ground on that sub-amendment? Clerk?
Yes, there is discussion, but I believe Mr. Miller has a question as well.
Yes, and Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may, would it be possible to have it in writing by any chance? Thank you.
And then on the floor, hands up, Dr. Fry, there was Mrs. Thomas and Mr. Julian. Dr. Fry?
Yes.
On the floor after Mr. Mela, there was also Mrs. Thomas and Mr. Julian.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Mella, is there a problem with Mr. Mella speaking?
No, Madam Chair. I would just, Mr. Biddle just sent the amendment, so I have it in writing. That was all. Thank you.
Oh, you just wanted it in writing. Thank you. So, Mrs. Thomas?
Thank you, Dr. Fry. So I'll speak to the sub-amendment, and once that's done, then I guess I'll speak to the amendment as a whole. But my question for Mr. Ripley, this phrase, do not further disclose, what would that mean? Because what would that mean?
In practice, my understanding of the sub-amendment is so if they were provided confidential information, they could only use it for the purpose of the activity of arbitration. And practically speaking, there would have to be some mechanism limiting their further disclosure. So I suspect that would be something like a non-disclosure agreement signed between the CRTC, for example, and those arbitration panel members, but they would be bound not to further disclose or use that information in any other context.
So would there be any other portion of this bill or a loophole that would allow that information to be shared beyond the Commission and the panel?
As constructed right now, the bill, so the confidential information remains in the hand of the CRTC. So this would be an expansion of that, and the panel or the arbitration roster is comprised of individuals from the private sector, from other sectors, and so it would be an expansion of the individuals with whom confidential information could be shared.
Thank you, Mr. Ripley. Mrs. Thomas, did you get your answer? Can someone please turn off their mic on the floor? Thank you. Good. So now, Mrs. Thomas, did you get the answer you wanted? Oh, was your question answered?
Thank you, Chair. I do have one more question for Mr. Ripley, and that is this phrase in the amendment, any terms that the Commission considers necessary. It seems that this amendment then allows for the proactive offering of information even before it's required.
Mr. Ripley.
I believe what MP Julian is seeking to do is, so the Commission is the entity in possession of the confidential information, right? So they're the only entity other than the person whose confidential information it is to assess whether it's relevant or not. And so indeed it relies on their judgment to assess, given the arbitration in question, whether there's information that they feel that the panel should know.
So it is right. So it really, though, like, information could be sought out preemptively without evidence to need for it, because it's at their discretion.
It's at their discretion. As constructed the bill right now, in the context of final offer arbitration, the decision the arbitration panel will be making is based on the information provided by the two parties in their two offers, right? So that's the information that the arbitration panel would have at in their possession. What MP Julian is proposing to do is provide an opportunity that if the Commission's in possession of other information that they think is relevant but it's confidential, provide a mechanism that could be shared with the arbitration panel.
Thank you. Mr. Julian?
Well, I'd like to say I think Mr. Biddle's sub-amendment is brilliant, and I'm supporting it.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. Now, I'm going to call the question on the sub-amendment. Anybody opposing? On division?
There is opposition.
Yes. So did you want to call the vote? Quickly, clerk.
On division is fine, Dr. Fry.
Fine. On division is fine. Okay. And therefore, now we'll call the vote on the amended amendment. Thanks. Again, on division?
On division, Dr. Fry.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move to, NDP 24 is carried on division. Now, clause 36 carry as amended.
On division, Dr. Fry.
Okay, on division carried. Shall clause 37 carry? On division.
On division.
Thank you. Shall NDP 25. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for being up so early this morning in British Columbia. I know firsthand working on Eastern Time and getting up at 4:30 in the morning is a challenge.
Peter,
so thank you for being here.
Peter, I had to do this every Friday when I was in Vancouver for the medical assistance in dying thing. So I just thought I dodged that bullet today, but I hadn't, obviously. Okay.
Well, thank you for your availability. The NDP 5 is an amendment originally proposed, you'll recall, in testimony.
25, Mr. Julian?
Yes, NDP 25.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so NDP 25 was originally proposed by Unifor Canada's largest private sector union that represents many of the journalists across the country. And what NDP 25 is seeking to do is ensure that we are looking for transparency, broadening the transparency of C18. It is ensuring that knowing about the values of the deal, it allows arbitrators to request information when they're making decisions in the arbitration process. And that, of course, helps in terms of structuring the most informed decisions possible, hopefully, so that the negotiations with Big Tech will result in more supports for community newspapers, for online publishers, for the ethnic press across the country, so that we can have more journalists doing the excellent work that they do. So I move NDP 25.
Thank you. Is there a discussion?
Mr. Biddle has his hand up, Dr. Fry.
Chris?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Just very quickly, again, I believe it's well-intentioned, but I believe this moves us away from fair negotiations under the bill, and it hurts bargaining powers to news organizations. Thank you.
Any further discussion? No, then we shall. Okay, I'm going to call. Shall NDP 25 carry on division? Carried?
I'm hearing no's in the room, Dr. Fry.
Not carried. Thank you very much.
Okay, I would request a vote on this. I will request a vote on this particular amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. All right, please, clerk, vote.
NDP 25, Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Madame Hefner.
Contre.
Monsieur Housefather.
Contre.
Monsieur Lewis.
Opposed.
Madame Gladue.
Contre.
Mr. Leipert.
Opposed.
Mrs. Thomas. Mr. Waugh.
Opposed.
Monsieur Champoux.
Contre.
Monsieur Julian. Merci. 10 contre, 1 pour.
10 opposed, 1 in favor.
NDP 25 does not carry. Now, 20, yes. Now, NDP 26, Peter.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This amendment, as you remember, was moved during the testimony that we heard from the National Federation of Communications and Culture, and it indicates that you have to take into consideration the bargaining power of new enterprises and also the new technologies. So the intent of this amendment is to improve bargaining. So I move NDP 26.
Discussion? Clerk? No, so I shall call the question. And the question is, shall NDP 26 carry on division?
I'm hearing.
Clerk, you want to say something?
Yes, on division. On division, Dr. Fry.
All right. So it carries on division, right? Okay. Now, shall clause 38 carry?
As amended, Madam Chair.
Yes, as amended. Sorry, Ms. Miller. Shall clause 38 carry as amended?
On division.
On division. All right. Shall clause 39, CPC 25.
All right, CPC 25 is intended to make the criteria less arbitrary or discretionary. It's intended to consider both sides of the coin, both investments and expenditures involved in the making available of news content. And so we feel that this helps make the legislation more well-rounded and taking into account all factors involved in in both the creation of news as well as the sharing of news content.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Mr. Biddle has his hand up.
Mr. Biddle?
Just very quickly, unfortunately, we believe that this would skew deals in favor of foreign tech giants, and as such, I can't support it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? No, I shall call the question. Shall CPC 25 carry on division?
Oh, we're going to need a vote on that one, Dr. Fry.
Oh, all right, go ahead. Please.
CPC 25, Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Madame Hefner.
Contre.
Mr. Housefather.
Contre.
Mr. Lewis.
Opposed.
Ms. Ledoux.
En faveur.
Mr. Leipert.
In favor.
Mrs. Thomas.
In favor.
Mr. Waugh.
In favor?
Monsieur Champoux. Je m'excuse, je l'ai manqué, Monsieur Champoux?
Did I miss you, Mr. Champoux?
Contre?
Against?
Si. Mr. Julian.
Contre, opposé.
7 nays, 4 yeas.
So CPC 25 does not carry. Now we go to Liberal 1. Anthony, is that you?
Yep. Yes, it is.
Liberal 1, that's not what we dealt with earlier on as a sub-amendment.
No, no, it's not, Madam Chair.
Okay,
This actually
good. Go ahead then. Go ahead.
This actually should be Lib 3 because I've had 2 other amendments, but whatever it's called. Madam Chair, this basically simply does 2 things. It removes the arbitration powers requirement to consult with the commission in the event it's dismissing an offer. There's no reason that the independent arbitrators should be going back to the CRTC to discuss this with them. That's not how arbitration works. And the second thing is it's not following the normal rules of arbitration, and it's encouraging bad behavior the way the bill is drafted. The way the bill is currently drafted, if the arbitration panel dismisses an offer, they're going back and giving the same party whose offer they dismissed because it was so bad the chance to make a new offer. That's normally what would happen is you would have the other party's offer then win. And so right now, what I'm saying is if one offer is dismissed because it violates the terms of 39A, B, or C, the other party's offer automatically then should win. And the arbitration panel will explain why it dismissed the offer, but it's not obligated to give that party a chance to do a new offer, because then you're encouraging parties to do the farthest possible they can. And if it's dismissed, all they have to do is make a new offer again. So the only time there should be a new offer is if both offers are dismissed. Then, of course, the parties have a chance to make a new offer, but not if just one is dismissed. If one is dismissed, the other party's offer wins. And that's how I understand arbitration to normally work. So that anyway is my recommendation. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? Clerk on the floor? No discussion. And so I'm going to call the question. I have it in my clause by clause as Liberal 1. Anthony suggests it's Liberal 3. So what I will do is I'll ask the question, shall Liberal 3 carry on division?
On division, Dr. Fry.
Thank you. All right. And now we go to, I'll go to shall clause 39 carry?
As amended, Madam Chair.
As amended?
On division.
Okay, on division.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes, Peter.
I would like to propose that we carry clause 40 to clause 44 on division, if we have UC for that.
Agreed.
Is there unanimous consent? All right, so did you suggest clause 40, 41, 42, 43, 44? On division, all carried? Okay. That's great. Thank you, Peter, for moving us along so nicely. Thanks. And now we're going to go to a new clause, 44.1, and that's PV6. Is there anyone here on PV6?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes. Yes.
The amendments from the Green parties are deemed moved, so there's nobody that needs to be here to move them.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So shall PV, is any discussion on PV6? Seeing none, hearing none, shall PV6 carry on division?
No.
So perhaps
No.
defeated on division?
Is that the sense in the room? All right, thanks.
No,
Okay.
Madam Chair, sorry, it's just defeated unless there's someone here who's voting in favor.
I am. So
You are?
Yes. So
Okay.
defeated on division.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Defeated on division. Shall clause 45 carry? Shall clause 46 carry? Shall clause 47 carry? Shall clause 48 carry, all on division? Yes, indeed. Okay. Okay. And now we go to clause 49, NDP 27. Peter Julian.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And this was an amendment that was suggested by Unifor, Canada's largest private sector union. Represents many of our terrific journalists right across the country. Again, in terms of the transparency, this is another of the amendments that would help to ensure more transparency in terms of the confidential information that the parties would require in assuming as they move through the process that the best possible outcome for local community journalists. So I move NDP 27.
Any discussion on NDP 27? In the room? No. On the chat? No. So I'll call the question, shall NDP 27 carry on division? No, so it does not carry on division.
Defeated on division.
Defeated does not carry, same thing. Thank you. On division, so defeated. Now, shall clause 49 carry on division? Yes. Shall clause 50 carry on division? Yes. Shall clause 51, G4? Now, if G4 carries, BQ6 and CPC 26 cannot be moved due to line conflict. So G4, any discussion? Is there any in the room, clerk?
Mr. Biddle has his hand up, Dr. Fry.
Yes, Chris?
Just very quickly, Madam Chair, thank you so much. We've heard concerns about from the tech platforms about specific provisions in this act. We agree that we don't want unintended consequences, and we believe this amendment greater clarifies what the intention of the provision and the act does. Thank you.
Thank you. So any further discussion? No?
Mrs. Thomas has her hand up.
Miss Thomas and Ms. Gladue has her hand up in the chat. Okay, go ahead. Mrs. Thomas?
Well, actually, Chair, it's going to be Kevin that takes over from Ms. Thomas. We actually think CPC 26 is better. So just in a matter of time, we're probably going to oppose this because we think ours is better, and it's coming up shortly.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Gladue.
Thank you, Chair. Certainly, I agree with what Mr. Waugh has said. I do think 26 is better. And I just want to make you aware that you remember the conversations we heard from witnesses about undue preference and how this would interfere with the way that people try to downvote hateful content or misinformation, upvote, news that's trending and all that kind of thing. And so they had recommended Australian legislation clause 52D. So in consultation with the legislative clerks, there will be a further amendment at 27, just to clarify all those things that are allowed, just for greater clarity.
Thank you, Ms. Gladue. So shall G4 carry? Shall G4 be defeated? I'm getting a sense it'll be defeated on division. No? Anyone voting for it?
I believe carried on division is what's being discussed.
Carried on division.
Did you want a recorded division
really,
or?
Chris, I heard Ms. Gladue and Mr. Waugh speak, but I didn't know what the others think. So shall I ask the question then? Shall G4 carry on division? Yes, nodding. I'm seeing nodding. I can't see the floor, but I'm seeing nodding on the chat. So G4 carries on division. Okay, so now we go to BQ6.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Martin.
I know it's
Fire away.
the legislative clerk here, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mella.
Since the G4 was adopted, there is a line conflict between BQ6
Yes,
and
sorry.
CPC 26.
And CPC 26, okay. So I'm sorry about that. My pen is not working. Okay, so now, okay, so just a second. My pen is certainly not working, so I don't know what I'm writing down here. Okay, so now we go to CPC 27. Yes,
That
Ms.
would be me.
Gladue?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
So this is the one I was talking about. It adds that an operator that ranks or curates news content, increases or decreases the prominence of news content, or makes news content available in a manner that makes a user more or less likely to interact with it does not contravene paragraph 51(1)(b), just for greater clarity.
Thank you. Any discussion on this?
Mrs. Thomas?
Mrs. Thomas?
Thank you. Yeah, so just I appreciate the amendment brought forward by my colleague, Mrs. Gladue. And I guess the only thing I would add to that is just in really basic, simple terms, what this amendment does is it's simply looking to protect the internet in the way that it functions now. Individuals go online to look for content that appeals to them, rather than what should be forced in front of their eyeballs. And so it protects that element where users of the internet, when they go searching for something, would continue to get content that would be curated for them, and that would not be called undue preference.
Thank you. Any further discussion? No. So shall CPC 27 carry on division? No, it shall not carry. It's defeated on division. Is that what I'm hearing?
Recorded division, Dr. Fry.
Please record.
CPC 27, Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Madam Hefner.
Contre.
Mr. Housefather.
Contre.
Mr. Lewis.
Opposed.
Madame Gladue.
Super in favor.
Mr. Leipert.
In favor.
Mrs. Thomas.
In favor.
Mr. Waugh.
In favor.
Monsieur Champoux.
Je vote contre.
Merci. Mr. Julian.
Contre, opposé.
Right, so that clause.
Quatre pour. Thank you.
Thank you very much. CPC 27 is defeated. Now, shall clause 51 as amended carry? On division? Yes, okay. Now, clause 52, G5. Mr. Biddle.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Very quickly, this amendment allows the CRTC to dismiss frivolous complaints as well as establish what factors they need to evaluate a complaint. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing no hands on the floor and none in the chat, I'll ask the question, shall G5 carry on division? Or shall it just carry?
On
Good.
division.
On division, okay. Now, shall clause 52 carry as amended? On division, all right, carried as amended. Shall clause 53 carry? Carried on division? Yes. Okay, shall clause, now clause 53.1, NDP 28.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to move only part of NDP 28. I will be moving the part that Bill C-18 be amended by adding after line 30 on page 17 the following new clause, 53.11. If an eligible news business enters into a covered agreement, the business must file a copy of the agreement with the Commission within 30 days after the day on which it enters into the agreement, or 30 days after the day on which the arbitration panel makes a decision that is deemed to be an agreement under Section 42, as the case may be. 2, the Commission must maintain and publish on its website a list of covered agreements, including the names of the parties and the commercial value and terms of the agreements. And 3, the Commission must add a covered agreement to the list within 90 days after the day on which a copy of the agreement is filed under subsection 1. I am moving those 3 portions. I am not moving the 4th paragraph, and I wanted to be clear about that. We have consulted the legislative clerk, and I wanted to make sure that it is clear to everybody that paragraph 4 I am not moving. The 3 paragraphs that I am moving are both reflected in testimony that came from Unifor, Canada's largest private sector union that represents so many journalists across the country, and the Independent Online News Publishers of Canada, which publishes so many of the terrific online publications, including in my community, the Burnaby Beacon and the New Westminster Anchor. And what this does is helps to set that level playing field to assure that there's more transmission of information, and that particularly the small players have the information that they need to ensure that they get the best possible agreement, so that the hovering up from big tech of all the journalistic ad revenues will actually serve to benefit local community publications. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. Ms. Gladue.
Thank you, Chair. In the private sector, commercial agreements are typically not published with all their details, so I'll be opposing this.
All right. Now, any further discussion? On the floor? No? No, so then I shall...
I will ask for a vote on this amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. Okay, so please, clerk.
NDP 28, Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Madame Hefner.
Contre.
Monsieur Housefather.
Contre.
Mr. Lewis.
Against.
Madame Gladue.
Contre.
Mr. Leipert.
Opposed.
Mrs. Thomas.
Opposed.
Mr. Waugh.
Opposed.
Monsieur Champoux.
Contre.
Monsieur Julian.
En faveur.
So
10
close.
contre, 1 pour.
10 against, 1 for.
Pardon? Oh, sorry. I thought somebody said something from the floor. Okay, sure. So NDP 28 is defeated. Now we go to G6. I would like to suggest that this amendment seeks to add a new section, which is 53.1.
Madam Chair.
To the bill, yes?
Sorry, Legislative Clerk here. I just wanted to point out that since CPC 23 was defeated, the ruling doesn't need to be addressed.
All right. So,
Thank you.
Okay. So, therefore G6 is admissible. Now, any discussion on G6?
Mr. Biddle has his hand up, Doctor.
Chris?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Just the amendment clarifies that if CBC is eligible, they will have to publish a report on where the money is going. We've already had a lengthy debate on CBC's eligibility, but we need to recognize that there should be unique requirements because they are a Crown corporation, and just requires that they have certain reporting requirements under the Act that other organizations won't have.
Thank you. Any discussion, Ms. Gladue?
Thank you, Chair. I think we've been clear that we don't think CBC, that's getting billions of dollars already from the government, should be part of this framework in C18. This will certainly not help the small media organizations that we're trying to help. It will give them the lion's share of the money, so I will be voting against this.
Thank you. So...
Mr. Waugh has his hand up, Dr. Fry.
Mr. Waugh, I'm sorry, Kevin?
No, Madam Chair, I echo what Ms. Gladue said. I will say this. I did find the PBO numbers and the department numbers interesting this week. There was quite a discrepancy on dollars. So thank you to the department. It'll be interesting to see who's right, the PBO or the department. So I'm just going to throw that out there for reconsideration months later.
Thank you, Mr. Waugh. So now I will call the question. Shall G6 carry on division? Yes. Nodding. Good. Thank you. See, G6 carries on division. Now, I'm just going to call the questions of clause 54 to 67 have not been amended. So I'm seeking unanimous consent for us to allow those clauses to stand. Thank you. So clause 54, 55, 56, 57, 58,
All on
59,
division.
60, all on division. And clause 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, all on division. So therefore, I go to clause 68, which is CPC 28. Yes, I don't know who's speaking to that. That's Mrs. Thomas.
Oh, CPC 28.
That was my fault.
All right. So currently, the way that this legislation is drafted, the current clause basically insinuates guilty until proven innocent, which is not in accordance to Canadian law or our justice system in the way that it functions. And so this is simply looking to reverse that, where an entity is considered innocent until proven guilty, which again we just believe is what makes for a strong justice system in this country.
Any discussion on CPC 28?
Mr. Biddle has his hand up.
Yes, Chris?
Just very quickly, Madam Chair, the CRTC is a regulator, not a prosecutor. They rule on complaints, they don't make them. So I'll be opposed to this amendment.
All right, thank you. So anybody else?
Mrs. Thomas has her hand up.
Yes, Mrs. Thomas.
Thank you. I appreciate Mr. Biddle's interjection. I think we're all aware that they're not a prosecutor. That's beyond the point. Again, this puts the burden of proof in Section 51 on the CRTC rather than on the accused DNI, which is appropriate. The accused should not have to prove their innocence. Instead, the accusee should be responsible for proving guilt. Again, that's just how our justice system works in this country, and I guess I would plead with the government to uphold that justice system. It's served us well for, over 150 years.
Any further discussion? Then the question will be, shall CPC 28 carry on division?
Recorded division.
Or is it defeated?
Recorded division.
Recorded
Dr. Fry.
division, please call.
Thank you.
Please call, clerk.
CPC 28. Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Madame Hefner.
Contre.
Monsieur Housefather.
Against.
Mr. Lewis.
Opposed.
Madame Gladue.
Yes.
Mr. Leipert.
In favor.
Mrs. Thomas.
In favor.
Mr. Waugh.
In favor.
Monsieur Champoux.
Contre.
Monsieur Julien.
Contre.
Merci. 7 nays, 4 yeas.
CPC 28 is defeated. Now, shall clause 68 carry? On division? Yes, okay, it's carried on division. Now, there are no amendments to clauses 69 to 83. So shall clauses 69 to 83 carry? I need unanimous consent for this.
On division, yes.
On division, all right. Okay, so now we go to clause 84, which is G7, I think. Am I correct? Yes, G7. If G7 is adopted, NDP 29 cannot be moved due to a line conflict. Any discussion on G7?
Mr. Biddle has his hand up.
Yes, Chris.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This is a consequential amendment related to G3 and G6, and this is needed to remove the regulatory power for the Governor and Council to regulate CBC Radio Canada, as we had discussed in length earlier in our debate on this topic.
Any discussion? Ms. Gladue.
Thank you, Chair. Not to sound like a broken record, but I don't believe CBC should be part of C18. They shouldn't be getting the lion's share of the money and keeping it from the local small media organizations. I won't be supporting.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Now, call the question. Shall G7 carry? On division? Yes, it's carried on division. And that means that NDP 29 cannot be moved. And we go to, guys, we're moving so nicely and quickly that I'm having to sort of just turn my pages faster than I think I can. All right, now, so clause 84.
As amended.
So clause 84 carry as amended. Thanks.
On division.
On division. Should clause 85 carry? On division? Yes, okay. Clause 86, NDP 30.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This
Peter,
was
yes, go ahead.
So,
Madam Chair, sorry, may I interrupt?
Sorry, Mr. Mellor?
P29. Oh, my apologies, I missed a page. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. It's moving so quickly that sometimes the pages stick together. You're trying to move them and you can't. Okay, so Mr. Julian, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Though I will say, I think everybody's working very effectively together. So this allows us to improve the bill in a way that has our focused attention on the amendments. So I note that we have an hour to go and only a handful of amendments. So I'm actually hopeful that we'll be completing the clause-by-clause review of this bill by the time the committee rises. So that's wonderful. NDP 30 was a suggestion that was made from the Canadian Union of Public Employees. They also represent journalists in some sectors across the country, and is Canada's largest public sector union, though they do also represent people in the private sector. And there is a small typo I just wanted to correct. So what this would do is amend by adding after line 33 on page 33 the following: C1, information relating to the effect of exemption orders made under subsection 11.1 on the Canadian Digital News Marketplace. That should read, not Marketplace. So Marketplace. And then C2, recommendations for the attention of the Commission or the Governor and Council arising from the analysis included in the report. And B, by adding after line 36 on page 33 the following: for the purposes of the report, the independent auditor may consult the Commission, the Commissioner of Competition appointed under subsection 7.1 of the Competition Act, and any person or entity governed by this Act. So I move NDP 30.
Thank you. Any discussion on NDP 30?
Mr. Biddle has his hand up.
Yes, Mr. Biddle.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Mr. Ripley what, if any, issues does he see under this amendment, if any?
Thank you, Mr. Biddle, through you, Chair. So, observation with respect to subparagraph C.1, from our perspective, this is information that the auditor could already ask for or be included in the report. MP Julian's amendment, however, would make it obligatory on the auditor to include this information. But the government's position is the agreements signed in the context of exemption are a key element of understanding the impact on the framework. With respect to subparagraph C, The only thing that the committee may wish to consider is again the relationship with any confidential information that may be provided in that context. Again, there may be implications just for how that information should be treated and protected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just very quickly, Madam Chair, I just wanted to thank Mr. Ripley and state that I'll be opposed to this amendment.
Thank you. So now, any further discussion on NDP 30? No. Shall I call the question then?
I'd ask for a vote. I would ask for a vote on this amendment.
Fine. NDP 30, we will have a vote. Clerk, please.
Thank you very much. NDP 30, Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Coteau.
Opposed.
Ms. Hefner.
Contre.
Mr. Housefather.
Contre.
Mr. Lewis.
Opposed.
Ms. Gladue.
Contre.
Mr. Leipert.
Opposed.
Mrs. Thomas.
Opposed.
Mr. Waugh.
Opposed.
Monsieur Champoux.
Contre.
Mr. Julian.
En faveur.
10 nays, 1 yay.
So NDP 30 is defeated. Now, G8, Mr. Biddle.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. This is similar to prior amendments and just simply sets out the reporting requirements of CBC Radio Canada should they reach an agreement with tech platforms.
All right, any discussion? Ms. Gladue?
Thank you, Chair. I don't believe CBC should be included in the framework of C18. I think it's not going to help small, medium outlets, and so, of course, I won't be supporting.
Thank you. So shall I call the question then?
Mrs.
Any
Thomas
further
as well,
discussion?
Dr. Frey?
Yes, Mrs. Thomas.
No, it's okay, Dr. Frey, sorry.
Sorry, Mrs. Thomas is not speaking? No, all right. So then I will call the question. Shall G8 carry on division? Yes, it shall carry on division. Now, BQ7, Martin.
Ben oui, il y a un rapport de
Yes, there is an auditor's report that is provided for in the bill. We don't know what is happening with the document that once it is going to be handed in by the Auditor General. So for greater transparency and foreseeability and predictability, we would like to have it reported as soon as it is prepared.
The discussion is Gladue.
Oui, je pense qu'il y a un autre.
I think there's also another amendment on, and it's NDP 31. I would prefer that amendment, and therefore I think that I will be voting against this one.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Dr. Frey. There's Mr. Julian and Mrs. Thomas.
Yes, Peter?
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I certainly appreciate, as ever, Mr. Champoux's work, but the fact that that says that as soon as the report is prepared, immediately after it is prepared, and it's a bit uncertain. Are we talking a week, a month? What are we speaking about? His intentions are good, but I will be having to vote against it because I know that the Commission must publish the report on its website immediately after it is prepared. I think adding 30 days, the 30-day proviso would for publication would be preferable. So therefore, I will have to vote against BQ7 and 4 NDP 31.
So, any further discussion? No?
Mrs. Thomas was after Mr. Julian?
Mrs. Thomas, sorry.
Sure. I just was seeking a point of clarification from the legislative clerk, and that is if BQ7 carries, then NDP 31 cannot be considered.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Miller, I did not think so, but go ahead.
Or is that, oh, sorry, it's after line.
It's
My
after.
apologies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, all right, so the question, I'll call the question then. Shall BQ7 carry on division? Is it defeated on division? As needing to be called a vote?
Avec dissidence.
On division.
All right.
Defeated on division.
So BQ7 is defeated on division. Now, NDP 31, Peter Julian.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have already spoken to this amendment, so I really don't have anything to add.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this amendment?
Mr. Biddle has his hand up, Dr. Fry.
Ms. Chris?
Madam Chair, just for the legislative clerk, just to clarify that there is not a line conflict with G9.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, it's not, because you add after line 36, so you can always add several, and it will be renumbered if needed at the reprint.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'll call the question then. Shall NDP 31 carry on division? Carried on division. And then G9.
I think that may have carried unanimously, Madam Chair.
Oh, I don't know. I can't see the floor. Don't know who's nodding and who isn't. Okay, so it's carried unanimously.
Thank
you. There you go, Mr. Julian. Now, shall G9, Mr. Biddle.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. This amendment just simply ensures that the report done by the independent auditor cannot disclose any commercially sensitive information.
Thank you. Now, discussion. No? I see no hands in the chat. Anything on the floor, clerk? No. So I'm going to call the question. Then shall G9 be carried unanimously on division?
On division. On division.
Okay, carried on division. Okay. Now, so the question is, shall clause 86 carry as amended?
On division.
On division, yes, carried on division. Okay, there's a new clause 86.1. That is NDP 32. Mr. Julian.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And this is the last NDP amendment, so I wanted to take a moment just to thank the legislative team. My team, Doris Ma, has done an amazing job, and Sean Hughes, and the clerk and the legislative clerk and analysts, and you, Madam Chair, for all the work in working through what is a very complex bill, but is undoubtedly a better bill after we have added all of these amendments in. I think it's fair to say that the bill is substantially improved, and I think we should all be proud of that. NDP 32 was suggested by the Center for Media Technology and Democracy of McGill University. They do terrific work in issues related to technology and democracy and media. And what they raised were concerns about the Australian model, that it was overly opaque by design. So news outlets really had no idea as to what metrics or benchmarks were being used to guide their negotiations. The Act currently has transparency requirements peppered throughout the bill, but there is no doubt that there is room for increased transparency. So currently it requires, the Online News Act requires annual data sharing, but in order for news outlets to make more informed decisions in real time, they need aggregated, audited market data to be released at regular and more frequent intervals, and not just annually, as the Act currently prescribes. So what this would do is add the following new clause: as soon as feasible after the end of each quarter in each fiscal year, the Commission must publish on its website a quarterly report containing audited data on the Canadian digital news marketplace in an aggregated form, including data on the number of agreements entered into under this Act and the commercial value of those agreements. And this aggregated data, of course, is something that preserves confidentiality that a number of people have raised as a concern, but does provide for that transparency that is so vital for ensuring the success of this bill. We want to regenerate our local journalism. One way to do that is to make sure that the market data is available in aggregated and audited form. And so I move NDP 32.
Now, any further discussion? Ms. Gladue.
Thank you, Chair. So there already is an annual report on the marketplace. And so I really think that demanding a quarterly report on top of that is just added bureaucracy that I don't believe is needed. So I'll be voting against.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the
Mr.
floor?
Biddle.
No?
Mr. Biddle. No, never mind.
Mr.
Dr.
Biddle?
Fry.
Never mind, Madam Chair. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to call a question, and if someone can turn off the mic on the floor, please. Now, shall NDP 32 carry on division? On division, yes. Good.
I'm
carry.
hearing defeated on division, Dr. Fry.
Yes, I asked on division. Can't see the floor.
But defeated on division.
It's defeated on division.
Madam Chair, I think there's one person arguing for it being passed on division and 10 people arguing for it to be defeated on division. So
and that is you.
I'll go with the defeated on division.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Now, shall clause 87 carry?
On division.
On division? Yes, carried on division. Shall clause 88 carry? On division? Shall clause 89 carry? On division? Shall clause 90 carry? On division? Shall clause 92 carry? On division? Clause 93, G10. Mr. Biddle.
Thank you so much. This just sets out the sequence for regulation making. In our discussion with platforms, they have indicated that they wish for certainty on the sequencing, on how regulations will be developed and introduced. And this amendment, just as I said, offers clarity around that.
Thank you. So any discussion? Ms. Gladue.
Thank you, Chair. Just to restate my previous view that when I don't like it that the governor and council, which is actually Liberal cabinet, gets to go and figure out what they're going to do after the fact without any parliamentary oversight. So I'll be voting against.
Thank you very much. So my question will be, shall G10 carry? On division? Okay. Now, shall clause 93 as amended carry? On division? Okay. Now, shall the short title carry? Yes, I see that unanimously. Okay. Okay, so shall the title carry?
Dr. Fry?
Nodding?
Everything,
yes,
including the short title, is on division.
Oh, I saw everybody nodding, but am I missing something on the floor? Okay, on division. On division. Okay. Shall the bill as amended carry?
On division.
Yes, on division. Shall the chair report the bill as amended to the House? Yes.
Dr. Fry, Mrs. Thomas has her hand up.
Yes, Mrs. Thomas.
Thank you. Well, this is the end to Bill C-18, and it will now be forwarded to the House. And so I would just like to go on the record saying this bill started out with the intent, or the stated intent, of wanting to help newspapers, particularly those in rural areas that are of a smaller nature, along with ethnic media outreach or newspapers. And unfortunately, the way that this legislation has developed and the way that it is going forward to the House, it will reward the big players such as the CBC, which already receives over $1 billion in taxpayer money. This legislation will support Bell Media, and this legislation will support Rogers. They together will take about 75 to 80% of the money available through Bill C-18, which leaves a very small cut then for newspapers to take. And once the larger players, such as Post Media, Torstar, and Globe and Mail take their portion, it leaves even a smaller piece of the pie, if any, for those small players that function within our rural areas, particularly in Western Canada. It's a sad day for those news outlets, and it's incredibly hypocritical that this bill leads out with a preamble that wants to look after the sustainability of news and support good journalism, and yet it has gutted the ability for these smaller outlets to exist. It's shameful that the NDP member actually ended up withdrawing his amendment that would advocate for those smaller players, yet continues to use talking points as if he is advocating for them. He does not have their back. He had an opportunity to vote for amendments that would allow entities with one journalist to be considered. Again, I'll repeat, he withdrew that off the table. Instead, he went into the pocket of the Liberals, as is the mode of operation of what the NDP are doing in this House at this time. Again, it's a sad day for those smaller news outlets, and my condolences to them.
Ms. Gladue?
Thank you, Chair. I also agree that the legislation, unfortunately, is not going to meet its intended purpose. I did vote for the purpose in Clause 4, but as I've said, I don't think it will. I want to remind the government that the tech giants are willing to put money forward to go into a fund that could be administered by an agglomeration of small media outlets, so that they could make sure that their viability is protected. And this is a much less bureaucratic and, leaves the independence of the internet. So I just remind the government they can still do that at any time.
Ms.
Dr.
Gladue,
Fry?
thank you.
Dr. Fry, on the
I have
floor?
one more question to ask. Who else? is on the
there
floor?
are
I have one more question to ask, and then we can have the summary discussions afterwards. Shall the committee order a reprint of the bill as amended for the use of the House at the fourth stage?
Madam Chair?
Yes, good. Okay, yes, Mr. Vella.
I'm not sure there was an answer to the question. Shall you report the bill as amended to the House?
Yes, I thought there was.
Yeah.
Yes, there was. Thank you.
Dr. Fry,
okay, so,
Dr. Fry,
yes.
there wasn't. Can we please call that question?
All right, will you please call the question? I thought I saw everybody nodding, but there you go.
On division, Dr. Fry, carried on division. Thank you.
All right, okay, I had it written here, carried on division. Okay, thanks. Okay, so shall we, now we have some hands up, and did I get a vote on shall the committee order a reprint of the bill to send to the House of Representatives? Okay, that was all carried. And now, Mr. Housefather.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to briefly respond. First of all, I want to congratulate the committee because I agree with what Mr. Julian said. I believe the committee improved the bill, and I think this was a very good way of working together. Nous avons travaillé ensemble.
We worked together to improve the bill, this piece of legislation, and it's a very good example of the cooperation that can exist in a committee. I'm very proud of it, and I'm very proud of the way in which everybody worked.
That there's no preordained total amount that will be negotiated in these agreements. Nobody could possibly know what amount every single organization is going to get. That, to start throwing out that it's this percentage and this percentage that this one's going to get, these are going to be negotiated agreements between the news media, either collectively or individually, and the platforms. So, I think it's very premature to make those declarations. We have absolutely no idea. I believe this will achieve its intent. Ça va supporter les journalistes.
It will support journalists in my region, throughout Quebec, throughout Canada, and I'm very proud of what we have achieved together.
Dr. Fry, on the floor, I have Mr. Julian and Mr. Waugh.
All right, Mr. Julian.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I did commit to the Conservative House Leader that I wouldn't say anything negative about Conservatives, but I just will note their ongoing hostility to CBC, which I find quite perplexing, and that we certainly saw during the Harper years, where CBC funding was absolutely gutted. But coming back to what we've achieved, we have adopted amendments that have helped to ensure that Indigenous journalists are included in a very meaningful way in C18 and will benefit from that. We have ensured a lot more transparency in C18. That's certainly a lesson coming out of the Australian model. And I wanted to point to, of the 16 NDP amendments that were adopted by this committee, the most important to my mind, and certainly to that of the independent online news publishers of Canada, the small players that are starting up right across the country and present in every community, including the Burnaby Beacon and the New Westminster Anchor. That amendment, which allows journalists, even if they're part-time, they own or partner in a news business or do not deal at an arm's length with the business, that they are now open to the C18 Online News Act. I am being heckled, Madam Chair, but I'll continue just the same. That what we've done is open the door to independent online news publishers right across this country, dozens of publications. The community newspapers in Alberta and Saskatchewan asked for this. They got that amendment, and that means a two-person operation, even if they're working part-time, even if they're partners and owners of the business. They access to C18. That is a significant access that small players right across the country, including those community newspapers in Alberta and Saskatchewan, will be able to access. That is a significant amendment, Madam Chair, and I would note that the Conservatives voted against it, which is, I think, quite astounding, given what they have been saying about the Act. Why would they oppose something that so clearly opens the door to the vast majority of the ethnic press, the community newspapers in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and of course to online news publishers? So I agree with Mr. Housefather. The bill is much improved. There are some aspects of transparency that I would have liked to have seen that were not adopted by this committee, but generally C18, the process has worked well. All members have tried to work in a constructive way, and we've got a much better bill coming out of committee than we had coming in. And I'd like to thank everyone who was involved in that, particularly the analysts, the clerks, the interpreters that have helped us all through, and our officials from Canadian Heritage who have answered the questions in such a clear and effective way. And thanks to you, Madam Chair, for your chairing, and to Mr. Waugh for chairing as well, part of this process, because that has helped us to bring this bill to a conclusion at committee as well. Well, thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mr. Julian Martin. There is no sound.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez maintenant, Madame la Présidente?
Can you hear me now, Madam Chair? Well, yes. I just wanted to add my voice to the voices of my colleagues for the work that has been done. Contrary to what Conservative colleagues say, I think we have established a bill that will allow for a variety of media to come through the crisis that they have been enduring for far too long. You know, of course, there will always be some who will be disappointed, Google, Facebook, but these things are to be expected. Google and Facebook have been able to make excellent presentations to C18. Well, we are looking at the small media, the regional media in Quebec and throughout Canada, where things aren't working as well as they should and as we would like to see them work. Nothing is ever perfect, of course, but we will watch closely, we will monitor the activities that are going to take place amongst these businesses. We are here. We will continue to look at the interests of smaller media in Canada and everywhere, in particular the smaller. And I too want to congratulate everybody on the work that has been well done here. My colleague, Mr. Waugh, in particular, for the meetings that he chaired. And in general, I just am very happy that I'm happy with the direction that we have taken as a committee here.
Thank you, Mr. Shampoo.
On the floor?
Is there anybody on the floor?
Yes, Dr. Fry. I have Mr. Waugh, Mrs. Thomas, and Mr. Biddle.
Mr. Waugh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank everyone around the table. It will be interesting because I totally agree with the Globe and Mail's article today on A13 that refutes what Mr. Julian has said all along, where it was the Liberals under Chrétien and Martin that destroyed the CBC funding and not Harper. I want to thank Konrad Jakubowski on the Globe and Mail report today, where it clearly says, under the Trudeau Liberals, the CBC keeps cashing in as we're up to $1.3 billion plus the $42 million that they gave in the fall economic update. The numbers are going to tell the story on this bill, if you don't mind me saying. The PBO has the number inflated to 180 more than the department, 180 million more. They have 329 million that they feel that is coming from the tech giants, and the department only had 150. So when you get the big boys at the table spreading the 150 million, I think we're going to see the demise of local newspapers in this Canada more than ever after this bill is passed. The Saskatoon berry pie used to be very big, and now the Saskatoon berry pie is only a tart when we're going to leave C18. So I think the future does not hold very well for small and medium newspapers. I'm really disappointed, as everybody knows, about the two reporters. I think it's going to have a big effect in the country, but we'll see where it goes. And I just want to thank everyone as we head out of here before Christmas with C18. And before we leave today, we do need to discuss next Tuesday. So if the judge is coming to talk about Hockey Canada, but thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Waugh. Mrs. Thomas?
Thank you. Madam Chair, I was just hoping that perhaps we could be provided with an update as to what Tuesday looks like for this committee.
Thank you. We will be doing that as soon as we have finished with everyone having had their say. Mr. Biddle?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. My say will be brief. I just wanted to add my thanks to everyone, the clerks, legislative clerks, our analysts, ministry staff, Minnow staff who've been particularly helpful to me, our own staff on behalf of the Liberals. I want to say thank you to the interpreters. I know there's been a lot of animosity, but the good news, I believe, all the parties ran on the Australian model. And we have achieved that onto report stage in the third reading, but I guess time will tell. I will agree with Mr. Waugh. Time will tell, but the good news is we've seen the results from Australia, and they have been overwhelmingly positive. And so I'm usually not, and I think everyone will around the table agree that I'm not usually an optimistic person, but I am optimistic about what this legislation does, what we'll do, and the impacts it'll have on Canadian journalism. So once again, thank you to everyone. Thank you. I know it can be tense at times, but it has been a collaborative process, and thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. And before we move on to discuss Tuesday's business, I just wanted to suggest that, or to let everyone know that I'll be reporting this to the House this afternoon, Bill C-18 amended to the House this afternoon. And I wanted to echo what everybody has said. As a chair, the process sometimes been bumpy, but that is par for the course in terms of, many political parties having different points of view. But I would like to say that overall, at the end, the ability of the committee to come together as a standing committee should, and to get this bill moving and to finish the clause by clause took a lot of collaboration. And I want to thank everybody for collaborating so that the process went smoothly at the end of the day. and that we can be able to send this bill to the House before we rise for Christmas. I also wanted to thank Kevin for pitching in there for me when I was in Poland, and for pitching in when my computer did not want to work last week. So I want to thank him for that. And I also want to thank everyone, including Mr. Mellor, for giving me all my little pieces of things so that I could do it efficiently and effectively. I want to thank the officials from the Department of Canadian Heritage who came here and answered so many, very many questions, actually making sure that everyone understood exactly what the bill is meant to do, what amendments are meant to do, etc. So I want to thank everybody, and of course, our clerk, Amy, for making this process move so very, very smoothly. Finally, I just wanted to I'll ask Amy to comment, but on Tuesday, as the committee had decided, we have asked Mr. Cromwell to come.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Sorry to interrupt. I was just wondering if we could excuse, if we're going to talk about sport, perhaps we can excuse anyone who doesn't want to or have to be here, including the unless the officials want to stay. They've done good work. They can hopefully leave.
Well, as I thank them, obviously they're free to stay if they wish. So let's move on. We have Mr. Cromwell. We've asked Mr. Cromwell to come on Tuesday, and perhaps the clerk can tell us whether or not he did agree to come, etc. So she's nodding yes. Mr. Cromwell will be coming on Tuesday, and of course, as this committee had decided a while ago, then we're going to embark on the discussion of safe sport. We also agreed that Status of Women Canada was going to, Status of Women Standing Committee is dealing with some of the elements of this, but we think that the element of safe sport is far broader than sexual misconduct. There are so many things that I personally have heard from very many people about bullying in the system, about, putting down people in the system, about causing illnesses and psychological trauma to a lot of people in systems. So I'm glad we're doing this study. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm hoping that we might also spare a bit of a half an hour or so on Tuesday to just maybe have some Christmas cheer and thank each other for working together in a very collegial manner. Bit of Christmas cake, Amy, a little bit of tortilla. I don't know, I might trundle a couple of bottles of BC wine with me, bring it back for you guys. But let's just leave and spend the Christmas holidays and bring in our new year with a certain sense of camaraderie. Thank you. Anthony.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you for the great job you did over the course of these hearings. I just wanted to make sure I'm hoping we're having Justice Cromwell for more than just 1 hour. 1 hour leaves very little time for questions. I'm hoping that Justice Cromwell is being brought here for at least 90 minutes. I thought it was 2 hours, but if it's not, I'm hoping it's at least 90 minutes. So I wanted to just get clarification on that. And the second thing is, I saw that we had a request from Skate Canada for an extension potentially related to in-committee minutes. And I just wanted to suggest to the committee that given that we're hitting the Christmas break, that we allow the clerk to agree to reasonable requests for extensions that come in from the 6 different sporting federations if the clerk and the chair judge them to be reasonable during that period, so that we don't have to meet again each time.
Thank you, Anthony. I think we're going to ask Amy to tell us whether or not. It would depend on Mr. Cromwell's availability. He's bringing a couple of people with him that he wants to help to, speak to the matter. But Amy, will Mr. Cromwell be here for 90 minutes?
Justice Cromwell was invited for 1 hour, as I was instructed, but I can certainly increase the invitation and see if he is available to stay for, was it 90 minutes or 2 hours that the committee would like?
An extra 30 minutes. We're going to spend the last half an hour of the committee just getting together and bonding, quote unquote, for want of a better word. Yes.
Mrs. Thomas has her hand up.
Yes, Mrs. Thomas.
So just to affirm what Mr. Housefather is saying, we're requesting that Mr. Cromwell come for a minimum of 90 minutes and up to 2 hours. I believe there's consensus in the room for that. So, and if I'm understanding correctly, it's more than just like, hey, would you like to? It's like, hey, actually, this is the time of the committee. We would anticipate that you'd be here for 90 to 120 minutes.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. I don't necessarily think we can actually tell witnesses, you better be here because we want you to be here for that time. We ask them if they are available, and I think the clerk will be doing that to ensure that we have the maximum amount of time with them. Unless there's any further discussion, I think this meeting is deemed to be adjourned. Thank you very much. See you on Tuesday. Bye.
Da 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 da.